Well, Doug, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Everybody, of course, knows Doug Stewart, Councilmember, ex-mayor. Maybe, Doug, we'll start the conversation off with, we passed a grim milestone, the anniversary of the Franklin fire, and we are about to come up on the anniversary of the Pali fire. You were mayor when both of these broke out. Walk us through your lens, your eye view of how it unfolded, what was going through, how you sort of reacted.
Okay. Well, first off, there have been 3 fires. People forget about the Broad Fire.
That's right.
And the people who lost their homes and had damage, they don't forget it either. So you've got to remember that it was virtually the fire of the month there in November. When November started, November of the 7th or 8th, then we had December, I've forgotten the day of that 7th or 8th, in January 7th or 8th. And it was, one bat at a time is what it amounted to. I will tell you that one of my fears when I became mayor, and I even told my wife this, when I become mayor, I can't be more than 2 hours away from City Hall because I don't know what's going to happen. And lo and behold, we had it. I will tell you that the first thing that went through my mind, even though we had prepared, and I'll take credit for probably being the most prepared city council member we have right now, because I've been on the CERT team, and I've actually run emergency operations centers in my corporate life. So it wasn't a surprise to me, and I knew how things were supposed to work. But what got me most impressed was how the city staff, the county, fire department, the sheriff's department immediately went into emergency mode. And it was as though everybody was standing by ready to plug in. And that was extremely helpful. You didn't have a lot of amateur hours. If you go back to the Woolsey fire, we're a far different city today. In the Woolsey fire, there was the city manager and a public safety director. When we activated the emergency operations center, now there's 18 people in it. And it is staffed to FEMA standards. You can have a great plan, but your plan is only good for about a half an hour. And then you rely upon the skills and training that people have that are there, because you can't pick the people that are going to show up. They may be on the other side of town. They may not be able to get there. They may not be on duty that day. So you have to ride with the team you've got, but they have to be able to plug in.
Can I ask, how many times did you train, the city between Woolsey and Broadfire? Were there annual trainings, semi-annual trainings?
They run practice sessions generally about once a year, and some in-between things happen as well. They actually set up the Emergency Operations Center, and I don't know if you've seen it in operation, but it's in the multipurpose room. There are tables, there are vests everybody wears, and under the FEMA system, there's finance, public relations, public information, emergency control, and so forth. All these different people. You put on the vest, you're there. Palisades fire came. The quick story of that, we set up a day ahead of time. We knew it was coming. And I've forgotten what day the fire was now. What day of the year? Tuesday. All right, we set up on Monday. The center was not staffed, but on standby.
And is that just because of the winds?
Yeah, and the situation was because it was a PDS, potentially dangerous situation. So Malibu set the room up. Everybody knew to be on edge, be ready. And I think the fire started at 10:30, 11:30. We were immediately in that position. I was there, and I know enough to keep out of the way, but at the same time, I was there.
And what were the activities? What was the scene like the morning off, the 7th?
All right. Well, first off, you did any feedback. Malibu has a very good system where we have the fire liaisons, which are former, very well-respected fire people, former assistant fire chief, fire captains. I mean, all the people with badges know exactly who these guys are. And under the FEMA system, they're designed to plug into the Emergency Operations Center for the Incident Command Center, the Sheriff's Emergency Operations Center, and our center. So we had our people out already. and everybody was on standby. We were watching the fire coming. You know, the TV's on, and we had what are called RICS radios, Regional Interoperative Communication System. It's the size of Shaq's shoe, and it's a huge device. And that is total communications with everybody. And Drew Smith basically said, I'm going to try and stop it at Topanga. I don't think I can. We'll see if we can stop it at Franklin Burn Scar. So at 1:30, we put out the alert to evacuate Big Rock. And Big Rock still had power, and so they had communications. So we'd already started the process at that time. Got to Big Rock around 5:30 or so. And of course, it went right through Topanga. And I went, I'm telling you more story you want to hear, but I went home to get a change of clothes and tell my wife to pack up, get everything ready. And I'm coming out to go down. We had put stuff in the car in case we couldn't get back. And I was going back down to City Hall, and there's one of the fire liaison trucks pulling into my driveway. And he said, we need you now to go to Westlake Village. And he handed me one of these RICS devices. And he says, you're now the mayor in charge. And
So you didn't even go back to the multipurpose room. They were already
we were
evacuated.
pulling out of that right
They
there.
were pulling out of that.
And everyone followed suit over to
And
The whole thing was being moved. There was a U-Haul rental truck that was moving here.
And that was Tuesday. About what time?
That was about 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, at night.
Oh, so by then a lot of the destruction had already.
Real end was
coming.
gone.
And we were, the message, and this is something we can talk about if you want to, the message from Incident Command Center was, if we can't stop it at Franklin, you'll need to evacuate Malibu because it's going to burn to Point Magoo.
Well, credit to Drew and the fire captains and the fire team. They got their plan B. They stopped it at Franklin.
Yeah, we weren't through yet. Hold on a second. We weren't through yet. The problem was the fire was going to hit the Franklin Burn Scar, but the Franklin Burn Scar only went so far into Malibu Canyon. The concern was the wind was going to take it up and around it back.
Wow.
And my problem with the EOC that we'd assembled, and by the way, the people in these cog cities were right there to help us out. They opened their doors. They gave us whatever we needed. You can't bring the tables and everything else. We had the go boxes and set up with what we had and what they gave us. But the concern that was there was, how do I evacuate a sleeping city from basically Carbon Beach all the way to the Ventura County line? So we don't have electricity, the landlines are out, the cell phones are out, and the sheriff's department's out of deputies. And this is the genesis for something I'm very, very, very near and dear to my heart. We've got to get a better emergency notification system. Our tools that we have, for instance, sirens, are 1950s technology. When I was a kid, that was what we had, the air raid sirens. And we haven't done much again since then. There are some things on the development side. There's actually one company called Alert FM that we have a lot of high hopes for, but they don't seem to be able to get their act together. It's a technological startup. And we've tested it. We know it will work. And it's in place in Louisiana and Alabama and Butte County and so forth. And the feedback has given us pause.
And this has been on agendas, or at least discussed in council meetings.
It has been discussed.
It would require a device in everybody's home.
Yeah, but I tell you, the device is not much bigger than that. It's portable. You plug it into the wall, it charges up, as well as it has backup batteries. You can take it with you, and it works, I get too much in the weeds, on the sub-channel carrier of an FM radio station. You don't even have to have it tuned up. Any radio station it can pick up that has that, it's receiving it. And it can go as far as giving you a voice message, for instance, earthquake, 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 or we can geofence an area and say, for instance, right here, geofence it, a message to everybody here, evacuate now, turn right on PCH, and take your device with you. We will keep you informed.
If let's say they get their act together, do you envision that Malibu provides these devices to everybody?
Absolutely. It would cost us about less than $1 million to give one to every person.
So everybody comes to City Hall, picks it up, brings it home.
And
I-
you need
I wanna-
infrastructure, your voter registration, like, yeah.
Yes.
I want to go back for a second to 11 p.m. that night on the 7th of Jan. What's going through your mind as the mayor in charge? Well, first of all, how does the decision making happen? Do the fire departments give you advice, and as the mayor in charge, you'll have to make the decision on whether or not to evacuate? And then secondly, what is the criteria that you had set for yourself to decide whether or not you'd want to take that next step of evacuating all of Malibu?
Well, first off, this is where the FEMA system is so robust. Now, it's bureaucratic and everything else. Don't get me started about that. But it's got all the command and decision points built into it. What a lot of people don't realize is the fire department is the ultimate controller. It's not the sheriff's department. It's not civil defense, and it's not the city of Malibu. It's all of us working together. The Incident Command Center, IC, the IC, wherever it's located, is in charge. And then it starts putting its orders out and getting feedback up. So there's input coming in, output going out. So we're all in this together. We're hearing where the units are for the fire and so forth. We know where everybody is, what's going on, what the situation is. And we're actually riding, imagine, in the back seat with every first responder with that RICS radio system. And we're doing it together. And when the word was, if we can't hold it at Franklin, you're going to have to move everybody out. And I will tell you that we sat there in Westlake's conference room until about 1:30 in the morning before we felt safe that we'd passed the problem.
So they knew that they had a Western kind of barrier drawn by that.
They were able to control it in Malibu Canyon, the burn scar for that, past the burn scar at Mulholland and so forth, and it was now moving its way toward Calabasas. And by the way, at the same time this is all going on, resources are coming in like crazy. But the LA County Fire Department had pre-positioned. We had people ready to go. This is entirely different than LA City. LA County, Maroney and his team had done an excellent job of being ready to be ready. And hats off to them, because I don't know if you've ever chased down how long it takes to get a fire truck, but there's only about 30 firemen in this town right now. And at my house, it takes somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes to get Station 71 up to my house from the time the 911 call goes in. So the time it takes to bring all the forces together can be hours. And luckily, it was all pre-positioned. So when it was headed this way, LA County was already moving extra resources in to back up what they already had.
So in your view, some of the criticism that the fire department has received is unwarranted? They were more prepared than people give them credit for?
Oh yeah, they were more prepared, but there's only a limit. I mean, Maroney and I have had this conversation, and he's done it publicly. He can't put a fire truck in front of everybody's house. He can't put a fire truck on everybody's street. They've got to decide where the best resources go. And once you commit those resources, it's hard to pull them back. For instance, you can't lay hose, try and put out a fire, and then yank it back and have to reassemble and go. So part of this is like strategic deployment of an army. And you got to fight the fire where you can fight it.
Yeah, you give the resources you have, the fire's behaving the way it will, and you try to mitigate that with whatever resources are parked.
It's just like a war.
Do you have to evacuate during Woolsey fire too?
Sorry?
Were you living in Latigo Canyon by then?
Yeah.
And did it get close to your house?
Burned the house across the street, burned all around my house, all this landscaping. My house has been burned, I call it burned over twice.
What do you ascribe to that? What's the success? Where's your luck?
All right. First off, let me tell you how my house is rated. People don't realize about the risk scores on
Insurance?
And I was a director of a major insurance company for 10 years. It was eye-opening to see how risk and rates
You're one of them.
set. Yeah, it's not quite as statistically proven as you would like necessarily, but there's a scoring system, and every house, just like you have a credit score, has a score of the house, which is involves things like your driver's license, what's your driving record, what's your credit score, and what your house look like. On the California Fair Plan, 1 to 30, where the overratings, I don't know what they are currently, but my house was a 2. At the time, a few years ago, 1 to 9 was you'd be underwritten by, say, a State Farm or Progressive or something like that. Anything over that was a high risk. Mine's a 2. Mine was one of the few houses in Malibu was a 2.
So even though its location is presumably rather dangerous because of the build of your house or the
Build of the house, it's a stucco house, concrete roof, gutters with leaf guards, brush clearance all around it. I got everything pushed away from the house. There's trees. I still have the palm trees, which it scares me to death. I'm going to think of that one of these days. But I also had a fire pump for the pool with hose, and it was set up on both. Every time there's a fire, it's set up, it's primed, ready to go.
Do you have a generator? I'd love to talk about this. Do you have a generator ready to go for that to power it if the power
It's
goes out?
gasoline powered. It's a Honda water pump, 150 gallons a minute, 250 feet of 1.5 inch hoses, 4 nozzles, full turnout gear, helmet, goggles, gloves.
So his property is an asset to a fire department rather than a liability. And in the event of a wildfire,
I'd love
this
to
is
just
what everyone should aspire to.
publish everything you're talking about.
Yes,
So
yeah.
you have guidelines.
We have talked about this when I was on Public Safety Commission. We actually put the
It's true. Like, good for him. Most people don't have the foresight.
No, well, he's joined the community brigade, so this stuff.
Oh, here's the other thing. If you look at our house on the garage wall, besides the fact that there's some survival tools, like being able to turn off the water, there's a water tee, there's crowbars, there's shovels, axes, things like that. They're just hanging on the peg-leg. But there's also laminated sheets that say, if you have to evacuate, this is your 5-minute take, your 15-minute take, and your 30-minute.
And did you put all this together?
And
And it's because you know the insurance, how they like to look at things to rate your house.
Or did you do all this after Woolsey?
it was concurrent with Woolsey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe just to go into the reasons itself of why we are in as vulnerable a spot. And it's heartening to hear that we don't have to be as vulnerable. There are homes that can be rated a 2 like yours. But what are your views on some of the factors that led to this? Maybe let's start with the prescribed burns.
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, I'm a big fan of this. And as I've told people, Halen and I are on an ad hoc to work with the MRCA and state parks and so forth. And quickly, the story was Joe Edmondson in one of our meetings says, I want to give you guys $100,000. I'm giving it to all the cities to do firewise preparation.
This is Joe Edmonds.
Head of MRCA.
And how long has it been had? How long has it been had at the MRC?
Since God wore knickers.
Yeah, it's worth pointing
I
out.
think he's the longest serving appointed official in the state of California.
Did his house burn in the Palisades?
Yeah.
He watched it burn. It was obviously very traumatic for him. And I think that softened up some of the edges on Joe.
And this gift came when? After the fires or before?
This is after the fires. This is last March, June, something like that. Anyway, he's trying to give us his money. I said, Joe, we don't want your money. He said, we don't need it. We already have Firewise and so forth. We need for you to take that money and go do brush clearance in the Santa Monica Mountains. These fires don't start in Malibu. They hit Malibu at 1 mile wide. We need to stop it when it's 10 acres someplace. And you need to have the features for that. And if you've seen Drew Smith in action, the fire whisperer, the LA County Fire wants to have a mosaic of fire control points, not the Great Wall of China, but fire control points, to be able to arrest the fire, preposition the fire, or whatever they need in the high fire zones. And this comes from brush clearance, goats, and control burns. And from that, we just got the state to fast track 6 projects. And by the way, Lindsay Horvath was on board with this too. You'd be surprised the hoops we had to go through to get everybody to believe this was really what LA County wanted to do. And now it's to do these brush clearances in the mountain areas. And it's not to be done every year. People have a misunderstanding about this. You don't want to change the nature of what's there. You want to have it so it can control. And to give you a quick example, the Kenneth Fire, which started during the Palisades Fire over near where Woolsey started, we were actually in, the EOC was actually at Westlake Village at that point. And we had to abandon ship out of there because it looked like Gura Hills and Westlake Village were going to be under fire. But that fire got to the Woolsey burn scar 7 years ago, and it gave them a place to stop it. Mm-hmm. And that's what saved Gura Hills and that whole area.
That gave him that anchor point. But regarding the quilted landscape and the approvals, wasn't there something scheduled for this month? TSET met about it. Do you know what's going on with that? Does anybody know what's going on with that
No.
prescribed burn?
Well,
Up in Topanga?
there wasn't a prescribed burn that I was aware of until next spring. And there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Well, we were at the meeting, the TSET meeting where Drew Smith and MRCA, they presented their approval for a prescribed burn up near Santa Maria in Mulholland. And so that was scheduled for this month,
There was
pending weather.
there was some pile burning.
Pile burn up.
Pile burning, entirely different. A pile burning is to take the brush that's been cleared and piled up to burn it off. But without the rain in the last month, in the last 3 weeks, I don't know if they're going to do it. But there's nothing precluding that being done.
So the word on the street was that somebody in Malibu put in a letter of grievance against it, and that's why it's not happening.
I have no idea what somebody might have sent in a letter, but to my knowledge, nothing's been stopped.
Oh.
So the idea is that,
Hold on. Yeah, let me say one thing. Now, in San Diego, there's an appeals court decision by the Chaparral Institute that has put a wrench in how the EIRs were done, environmental impact reports, about what it does to the chaparral and the long-term growth of chaparral and the natural grasses versus invasive. That's going to have to be addressed, I think, in the future EIRs. And I haven't had a conversation with Drew about this as to what the plan is, but the 6 projects that we pre-approved, I've been told, have not been stopped because those were pre-approved by the state.
Joe originally wanted to give you some money, you said?
Yeah.
What was that for? Brush clearance?
No, it was to do firewise. Yeah.
Which is everybody starts hardening and changing their landscape,
What he was trying to
joining
do,
in as firewise.
what he was really trying to do was to say, well, I gave money to him. It's
I made an
pass,
effort. Yeah.
pass the obligation and responsibility because they had never done brush clearance. And now there's an active brush clearance program along roadsides and strategic locations.
So this is new since the Palisades fire.
Yes.
Was that the idea?
They always say like Prop Q or something.
No, actually, we're taking money out of Proposition 4. There's some maintenance money in there. And I'll say this about post-Palisades. Whether you like Newsom or not, every time we have asked, and I did this when we were trying to get the changes made to expedite ReBUild, everything we asked the governor's office for, we got.
I would agree with that, Doug, but now you're walking down a dangerous path, which is we haven't asked for enough.
Well, I tell you this, if you ask what we've asked enough for, we got everything we knew we needed. Now, that if you look at where we are today, there's now talk about trying to get sales tax waivers and so forth. That's another ask. And yeah, had we thought about that or been aware of it and focused on it, we probably would have asked for it. But at that point, we were trying to get the ReBUild process going. And I'll say what my pitch was. And to the governor, when I talked to him and the secretaries and so forth, and Malibu led this. You guys, I don't know that we get enough credit for this. The city of Los Angeles and the county turned to Trevor and Tyler and said, you got us through this. And they did.
For what?
For all the changes that were made about waiving environmental, CEQA's environmental, Coastal Commission, everything that came around to make our new Malibu municipal code. That was what we were pushing for, is to get all those roadblocks out of the way. Now we're further down the road and we see what we didn't know.
Back to the brush clearance for a second. Do you feel now that there is a fundamental shift in how these institutions such as the MRCA think about things? Or is it is it sort of just maybe a little bit of leeway, and then it's going to sort of get back to plants versus people? And, you know, I just recently.
And the trapper apple. So, I mean, who's this institute and who can stop them?
Well, you heard that at Topanga. You know, it's two people down, living in a yacht, hide somewhere. But no, here's where we are on the brush clearance. If you go back to when there was a proposed controlled burn in Topanga area a few years ago, Sheila Kuehl was still the supervisor, and that was the final silver bullet to the state's willingness to try and do anything down here. And basically, when we were trying to get this started for the new brush clearance plans and so forth, the Secretary of Natural Resources team basically said, until you get the county supervisor on board, we're not doing anything. So
She was the one who said no.
that's right.
Even
And there were people in Topanga that said no, and she listened.
even if the too much, we're doing it already, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
And so previously the supervisors had not been on board with aggressive brush clearing?
For almost 25 years, there really hasn't been any brush clearance in the state land areas in the Santa Monica Mountains, I'm told. But when Kuehl was here, and when she said no control burn, that was when they said, we're not going to deal with it. So I called to Lindsay Horvath. Was, sure, you tell me what you need. Let's talk it over with the fire chiefs, and I'll get back to you. Almost to the day, I knew when she got her briefing and everything else, it was a done deal. She's been totally supportive. So that part is there. Now you get to the hard part, money. The state right now already has an $18 billion deficit. The money to do the work that we're proposing to do in the Santa Monica Mountains is coming out of a waiver on Proposition 4, which is supposed to be for acquisitions. And that's what's funding this for now. And we're good for probably 2 years.
And were those acquisitions meant for like MRCA to buy land?
Yeah.
So instead of buying it, maybe they can take care of it for once.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to the line that I'd used with Joe Edmondson. There's a big difference between buying the land for Disneyland and running Disneyland. And if you look at where we're at right now, or the people that go to Escondido Falls or hiking that trail in Topanga, this is all running Disneyland. Just because you acquired it doesn't mean that you can just throw your hands up and say, I've saved nature. Because, as you said, plants versus people. You gotta run it properly.
I know this is kind of speaking in hindsight, and obviously I don't think you'll disagree with this, but spending the money in these preventative measures will save the state so much in economic damage when these massive events hit that it makes sense to do this brush clearance regularly, and I hope that's kind of the idea going forward.
That's the idea going forward, but you only got the tip of the iceberg. Let's go back to, can you afford to get insurance for your house? If you can't get insurance for the house, you can't sell it. You can't get a mortgage on it. And think what that does to the economic engine of California. If you can't, move a house, sell it, buy it, build it, and that's not just houses, single family, that's multifamily and so forth. So you've got to change the risk profile, because the insurance companies, yes, are the boogeyman and everything else, but at the end of the day, it's about how much money did I get in and how much money do I have to pay out. And if you can't change the risk profile, you've got to raise the insurance rates to match it, or take the risk assessment on it.
Or everybody can get a score of a 2 on a risk profile, then maybe the equation shifts.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, what's happening right now? I mean, fair plan, the government is basically subsidizing.
Well, now actually everybody else subsidizes.
Correct.
Ways the fair plan,
How
but
about just fill it?
all the other underwriters in the state, it's called admitted, and they backstop it. And that's the assessment that just got done. So basically, all the other insurance companies that didn't want to write the policies end up having to share some of the backstopping for that.
Mm-hmm.
But half of that actually goes to all the people that have insurance. They get an assessment. It's built in your
So it is brush clearance. It is like building safely, and also I remember a conversation that you and I had between the Franklin fire and the Palisades fire, and I asked you about undergrounding, right? And I asked you this question: how much would it cost to underground all Malibu? And you said something like $5 billion. the consequences of this fire has been above $60 billion. Yeah. So it's like the same, maybe a little bit investment in safety, like it pays off.
So that's a good segue. So certainly,
Just one thing. First off, go back to what I said earlier about where the fires start.
Mhm.
The fire he's talking about.
Fires don't start in Malibu. They start back in the.
Oh, the Franklin fire started in Mulholland, which is almost Malibu. The Broad fire started in Malibu.
Started in Malibu.
Yeah, but that wasn't an electrical.
So some fires start here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some fires start here, but more than anything else, it's about reliability and being able to control the fire and the resources. Being able to talk to people, getting them to move around. Don't mean to cut you off, but
And not rely on PSPSs and things like that.
and here's the other thing too. We're all going to pay for this in the increased rate. Southern California Edison is not doing this out of the shareholders' equity. They're they've got an approval. They started this in 23 to underground Malibu over a 4-year period. And there's a special rate increase for Malibu and the other areas they're doing the underground in. So we're going to be having this included in our bills. So I don't know how much it's going to be, but we're paying dollar for dollar for this. All this tearing up on PCH, we're all paying for that.
Probably cheaper than rebuilding, right?
They should do a better job with the asphalt afterwards if I'm paying for
some of
it.
them are doing a fine job. Now, we don't seem to be getting anywhere with the telecoms. We'll continue to see the polls even after Edison is done. Now, Edison going takes care of a big chunk of the problem. Telecom lines are low voltage, less dangerous, but the poles continue to remain a hazard. What do we need to do here?
Okay, I've had a lot of conversations with Frontier, and Frontier is basically bankrupt. In fact, they are bankrupt. They're being bought by Verizon, which isn't exactly doing that much better. And then you have Spectrum. But also look to the future. How many people have Starlink? And how many people are going to have, I think it's called Kuiper, which Amazon's coming out with, which is going to bypass the idea of having hardwire.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to spend a ton of money to go underground in the case of Frontier, which they don't have, and Spectrum, which has it, but it's not like the electrical people. They get to add it to a bill. Spectrum has to hope to get it back from fees we pay. There's no 25 cents a month for undergroundings. So it's going to be more difficult. We did put a request into FEMA. I think it was for $14 million to try and get the telecom money, to get telecoms money to underground. We'll see if that comes through.
But short of that, there isn't the business case, is what you're basically
Business
saying.
case, it's a great way to put the business case, but more than anything else, we've got reluctant sisters here. And also one thing to keep in mind, just to share a little bit on this, everybody thinks Southern California Edison is an electrical utility, and it is. But it's a subsidiary of Edison International, which just happens to be in the telecom business. So this is a competitor to all these guys.
And they are supposed to share the trench too, right?
Well, they're not required to.
Competitors, right?
Yeah, they're competitors. They're not required to share it. There's, I think, required to offer them a price to put it in.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand from my contacts at Frontier and Spectrum, it's actually cheaper to go and do it without Edison to do it themselves.
On the other side of the road.
Is it one of those things where we get the governor to intervene?
Maybe, but I think what we're going to have is probably more of a
Governor knows.
consensus as to what they can do and pass legislation to do it. It's not going to be a governor's order. It's going to have to be a legislative.
Well, so far they're waiting a bunch of the CEQA and the Coastal Commission thing. So this is,
But presumably SCE is undergrounding, not only because they have this easy mechanism to pass the fees along, but also because it will help them avoid liability down the road.
Yep.
Do you think that's part of the reason?
Oh, yeah.
And I could be wrong on the technical aspects of this, but Verizon or Frontier, Spectrum, their lines don't carry the kind of voltage that will start fires. So they don't have that liability concern. It's an aesthetic nuisance to keep these
Well, it's the
poles up.
poles.
It makes
I like
sense.
the poles. I don't think it's a nuisance. It's part of the fabric of the character of PCA.
Well, then it's also a problem then, because when the line comes down, the fire truck that wants to go through doesn't know is that a high power or not, and it will not drive
the
through.
road.
And the poles
That's
themselves
how it
could light up.
So the new poles that SoCal Edison put in, they're all protected, right? They're not just wood anymore. They have like that cement surround.
But the older poles are
fiber.
still staying though. Poles is bad from the past.
Let's get to the third infrastructural element, which has been topical this week, which is water. We saw the notice of a significant rate hike. It kind of snuck up on us a little bit. I think the hearing was this morning, actually.
Yeah, I don't really know how long.
And I
Just
just
say we got passed.
Now, the criticism, of course, is obviously there's a significant rate hike, 60 to 80%, but more so, there is no discussion on addressing the key issues. Because next time a fire front rolls through like this, we'll be in the exact same predicament of lines busting up and us being without water, and these guys will be putting their lives at risk with no water to fight the fire with.
There's no infrastructure tied to the rate hike. It was just we need the money, so we're charging more.
Capital improvement.
It's a little bit of that. Let's talk about the predicament we're in with County 29. County 29 was cobbled together out of all these disparate water systems that were around here. The pipes, some of them go back 60, 70 years. They're all steel. By design, they will not allow PVC pipe to go in as Las Virgenes does. And if the Las Virgenes gets right to the city limits,
Who won't allow PVC?
Who won? Previous companies before Caltrans.
or just 29,
Why is it?
Why don't they like it?
because they want to be consistent with all the other pipes that they have.
They don't want to get different fittings and stuff.
So it's all,
And before we even go there, can we get rid of Water District 29 and just get Las Virgenes? I think Hailing asked this question the other day.
I've talked to even where I live, for example,
Which is almost, yeah.
we're right on the edge.
Yeah.
In fact, our fire hydrant turnoffs, which were put in before the city hood, all say Las Virgenes.
Interesting.
You look at that and you go, how come we're not? And we get mail for Las Virgenes. So we talked to him. I had a friend on the board. They don't have the resources to come over here. And here's what it is. It's like a tree. The further you get from the trunk, the thinner the lines get. So that the interface areas like at Malibu Canyon Road and Malibu Canyon, and I think Kinsale. It's a 3-inch pipe is where they're
So
closest.
they approved, there's a connection now, right? Didn't they approve that at a hearing
Well,
recently?
we want it to be there. There's one, I think, down at Topanga.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what you need in order to have fail-safe is not single points of failure. So we need to have water interfaces, like at Malibu Canyon. There's a Michael Milken property right there. He brought a 3-inch line down to his property. And there's one from a failed subdivision, I think on either Encinal or Decker, that's about a half a mile away from Water District 29. But it's only 3 inches.
I see.
So if we had Las Virgenes take it over, all it would be is we change the master of the same barnyard. So we've still got,
But maybe better management.
They could incrementally bring PVC in.
Yes, exactly.
they could, but what you need to do, these pipes are like 60, 70 years old. They're going to have to come out soon. We're getting close to the end of life. That's the reason why all these things pop. You know, the pressure changes and bang.
And they bribe all the developers. Norm Haney always complains how much money they drain him to get the hotel approved, like $500,000 for a valve.
Yeah. Well,
Pennsylvania.
here's the other thing. We just went through a rate increase, supposedly to do all this magic upgrade a few years ago. And I remember, I think it was in 2014 or so, I remember thinking, what a con job. 5% increase a year, and they're saying it's only 25% increase. Well, compounding, it's over 30. And I just thought, deceptive advertising.
And is this going to be a 60% one-time increase, or it's just phased in?
The rate levels are just coming up to give them more money to put things in. And to their credit, they have put some tanks in and things like that. But where the real issue is trying to get the pipes replaced. And if you think about, we just screwed up PCH with SCE, we're potentially going to put a sewer in. Then you get the telecom undergrounding. And by the way, don't forget there's 30-inch water line down there too that needs to be replaced. So why don't you just open it up like a zipper
We have our built-in speed limit for the next 10 years. It's construction, till the end of time.
Like there's a water tank
The same
on Bush
lines.
Drive, right? We did 2 fire rebuilds there, and that water tank was supposed to be repaired back in 2017. It's still by there rotting. And also people at Carbon Mesa, they were supposed to get some improvements. Nothing happens, and that's
Well, apparently that's approved.
They're going to put stuff in, but it's going to be money driven. Yeah, and it's going to be dollar in, dollar out. The things that they're doing now are from this 30% rate hike. Now you've got to look at trying to put out the rest of the system. It's going to be hugely expensive.
Switching gears a little bit, Doug, to the rebuilds. What's your view on what has gone well, perhaps what has not gone so well? How do you look at it?
Well, first off, every day that goes by that somebody has an application in for some stage of rebuilding and it doesn't get processed, it's a failure. All right, good. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody, as you guys are, that is sitting there trying to get your house rebuilt, and it doesn't move along fast enough. Now, I built my house from 1998 to 2000. But my point of this is, it's very frustrating. And before I did the house in Malibu, I originally had a lot that I bought in Country Club Estates we're going to move to. And Thousand Oaks got its approval in 6 weeks.
wow. That's how they do it in Costa Mesa or Newport. It's
Yeah.
8 weeks.
So they have well-established teams to get projects through.
You know how it can go.
I know how it can go.
What's your opinion on the approval time?
All right, well, first off, it's very slow, but let's go back to one thing. What's Malibu's mantra by so many people? It's often referred to as the party of no.
Slow bills.
Party of no.
Is that appropriate after one of the worst disasters in state history?
I realize I'm being recorded. I'll say hell no. And the reason it's not acceptable is the fact that we've got our people, our residents, shouldn't have to suffer for people basically strangling the system for so long. You can't bring all the things up to speed instantaneously. The staffing, the rules, the processes. Plus, this is a unique place. I go back to my house at Thousand Oaks. It was on a paved street with a sewer system and a water system, and the gradient had all been pre-done and so forth. I was basically going to plop my house on a ready-to-go lot,
As plug and play as you can get with construction.
which is not the story of Melbourne. But, we are, and God bless Yolanda, Tyler, and the way we have things set up now, we're clearing out the brush. But you still hear people going, it's okay for a rebuild, but never going to let a new house, new construction take place. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. And yeah, I was the one, I'll take credit for this. We were still in the EOC, and Joe Toney, Alexis Brown, we were sitting there, and I said, we've got to have a discrete place to do rebuilds. We need to move this out of City Hall, preferably on campus, and let's get a rebuild center in there so that there's a differentiation between this and that.
I know this is your baby, so I don't want to be insulted. But you staffed the rebuild center with the exact same people who are causing the problems that we're talking
I
about.
fully understand that, but you got to start somewhere. And the symbolic nature of being off the building and being able to, and this is what I wanted to have happen. I wanted a concierge service and concurrent processing. Sit around a table like this, water district, fire department, geology, and so forth, and be able to start the process. It isn't going to happen overnight, but you can see where the seed was planted.
But
No, we're looking at
Well-
11 months now, so.
Well, I mean, I think what you stated earlier, the duality is what we have all contended is the challenge, right? I mean, we have the ReBUild Center, and yet they're tied at the hip with a lot of the same people that are trying to work both sort of ideologies, if you will, and then it's all tied together with the same process at the core, which is a challenge. And that's what I've always said, that, Tyler and Yolanda and these folks are working hard to try to get these permits through. and in some respects even brute forcing their way through to the permit approvals that we've had. But long term, it's I think continues to be a tremendous focus.
And it really does feel like we're trying to make incremental piecemeal solutions when the whole system needs an overhaul. And I think it sounds like you might agree with that. And that the fact of the matter is, these events are maybe what Malibu is now and what we are going to continue to face over the coming decades.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to build a building department that is ready to handle those things for our residents.
Yeah, because if we don't, the staff may end up getting a whiplash, right? Because you'll have the, ReBUild staff for 2 years. Then what, back to no growth for 3 to 5 until there's a fire, and back and forth, and they won't.
What are your views on the appeals?
Well, I want to come back to one thing here. Sure. First off, we had the Baker-Tilly report. And to understand how controversial that was about just having a community development department, it took us a year to get that over the finish line and to get Yolanda in that position. I knew from the moment I read that report where we had the person to run it. And if we follow the recommendations during Baker-Tilly, you begin to see the light. That's the freight train out of town.
I agree with you, but the one thing, the big thing we've accomplished is just changing the title of one person. Like, that's low-hanging fruit.
It's more than the title. We've got it where instead of having the planning department and building and safety like two separate worlds, you now have them under one control. You've got a smart group of people in there. There's unification. And the problem, you're asking me about the appeals. You can't, once again, talk out of both sides of your mouth. The appeal process is weaponized. There's no question about it. The same people put up the same appeals and I spent this afternoon getting ready for the one tomorrow. There are 25 appeal points on that.
On that antenna?
Yeah.
But I don't think that's fair though. Like, residents have a right to appeal. And you're above that. So you have to put processes so that appeals are more flexible and everything works well. Blaming the customer is not fair.
I fully understand. That's not my point.
Okay.
I couldn't agree with you more about an appeal. Just like you have a right to appeal a court case.
Mm-hmm.
But I also hope that in that appeal process, the two parties can come together and get a meeting of the minds, and we never have to see the actual appeal go through.
But the problem is that nothing really happens.
It does
That's
not
what
ever
until the
happen.
very
It
day.
does happen.
When they get close to the hearing is when things truly happen.
I know, and
That's the
I
problem.
understand.
It's the game. Don't blame the players. Right?
Yes, but when you don't like something,
Mhm.
and I'm talking about usually neighbors don't like something, it's going to block my view or it's going to change, my tree or whatever, and that becomes the basis of the appeal. But when you have a really valid point, and I go back to the house on Zoomeris, that was appealed up and down, and finally the people gave up. It's just like some of the EIR issues, where if you delay it long enough, you can wear down the applicant. And that sends a message to the staff about what the feeling is in the city. But appeals should be absolutely available, and there shouldn't be any holdback on it for a valid appeal.
But going back to the system, another thing that we talked before the Palisades fire, I have good memory. I asked you, in order to fix this process that we have, what is the key solution? And you said something like 50% of it is fixing the planning department. And to me, it's not about the staff. It's also like, if you don't fix the code that we have and the rules that we have, and you just keep on adding and making it more complicated, it's never gonna succeed. So don't you think that we should put some work now to really trying to make things just simpler?
Yeah, I fully agree.
So what are you doing in order to get that going?
Nothing at the moment.
So let's,
Yeah, and I fully admit that. Let's go back to the Baker-Tilly.
There's a New Year's resolution.
Yeah. The Baker-Tilly report gave us some guidelines on what to do, and we need to implement that. And it's not so much for the city council to do that, as it is to give the inspiration to the team that's actually supposed to run it to get it done. Remember, the city council form of government is more like a board of directors, and our CEO is the city manager. And from that should be the way to get this to operate. We should give them the incentives to get this done. Now, it doesn't mean we should be on their back about it.
And implementing technology that we also discussed about that.
Can we segue to that topic?
Are you allowed to talk about the
the
electronification
city
of planning?
manager?
Yeah,
Say manager.
Yeah, let's talk about the city manager. Yeah.
Something big's happened.
Well, I mean, what are your views? We heard
because we're here.
We're about to get a new city manager. What, just walk us through the process, what your expectations are, what.
When is his first day?
The
March 2nd.
When is it?
March
I
2nd.
thought it was December 17th.
He gets approved tomorrow.
And Hamden's last day is December 31st?
Or the 2nd. I think you can't terminate except on a work day. So she'll terminate on,
So who's in charge January and February?
you'll see.
I mean, we have a few assistant city managers, right?
But
We
what,
we already have an assistant city manager lined up to take us a transition
okay.
for those 2 months.
To the extent you can share, what are your views and expectations from the new city manager?
All right. First off, let's talk about what we're getting. I could not be more proud of the fact we got this guy. We had one recruiting group that got 78 applications in. And just because, and I'll equate this to college football coaches, just because you watch football every Saturday doesn't mean that you're able to coach Alabama or Ohio State. And that's kind of what we were getting in a lot of these. We had a few people that were interested in it, that were qualified. But I'll also give a comment that one of the people that took their name off the short list said, "Friends don't let friends become city managers of Malibu."
Should we go into why that is?
No, we shouldn't.
Okay.
All right. If you have to ask, you already know the answer.
Yeah, there's a long history that needs to be righted, but
Okay. So there were 78 applications in that, and we tried our darndest to find a qualified person. And I'll tell you what our criteria was. First off, they had to be a city manager experience. We wanted to see, ideally, somebody that had coastal experience, somebody that had experience with Caltrans, somebody that was familiar with a large area of natural resources, like the city is on open space, and somebody that had a good reputation for leading, directing, and achieving results.
So that's who you found?
Yes. All right. And the second recruiting team had 100 people apply. And the best we got was what I rated all. Steve, Urian and I are the two people in the ad hoc. So we were the ones that were screening and talking to those. Whether it's the 78 or the 100, we had a bunch of C's and D's and some that you don't even think about them. Best we have is probably B, maybe a B plus. And this guy is, first off, for those of you that surf, he's a surfer.
Nice.
He graduated from Cal State Channel Islands, environmental studies. He has a master's of public administration from a college in Washington. He's originally from Washington. He's been planning director and community development director. He's been assistant city manager at Healdsburg and also in another small town in Washington.
What would be your, go ahead, Andy.
can I ask, when somebody like this comes in, does the council, is the board of directors give any sort of direction? Or is it just the hire is done, let's see what the guy does?
Look, we have a strategic plan.
Exactly.
We have regular reports and progress reports. You know, go back to one of the things that got drilled to me in the MBA school. You don't measure it, you can't manage it. And so we are getting reports back. We are seeing things. So yes, he knows what the drill is. He has been watching our meetings now for several weeks. And
So he knows who all we are.
he reads the agendas. He's going to be here tomorrow.
Do you have hopes that he will be able to implement some of the other things in the Baker Tilly report?
Absolutely.
And maybe
This is a guy. This is a guy that's been a planning guy. He started out at the very bottom and worked his way up.
Maybe don't announce him tomorrow just in case it doesn't happen like with Rhonda, right?
No.
Don't jinx it.
He's
When
coming.
he started planning, he's going to be all for the electronic.
Yeah, that's my question.
we'll
With
see.
with Rhonda, she was announced as the city manager, and then things happened, and then she suddenly was not.
There was a
Can that happen with him again?
possibly, but that's such an unusual. There was an actual campaign from Palmdale. But
This is helpful and exciting to hear. I mean, as we read the news, we didn't know what to make of it. So I think your words are going to be very comforting to a lot of folks. Doug, you're regarded as the fiscal custodian of the city. A couple council meetings back, I heard you mention that we are running in a little bit of a deficit relative to last year. Obviously, because of the reduced tax revenue that we are collecting. What's your outlook on that? We aren't going to have the city rebuild right away. How worried should we all be about it?
I wouldn't use the word worried, but I think we need to be concerned and observant. Look, we're talking about a total city budget of over $100 million when you put all the assessment districts and everything else in. It's a big business. I mean, you think about it, $100 million business, it's got chops, and you need fiscal responsibility and management and so forth. It's one of the reasons why when we talked about who the city manager is going to be, the CEO of the business, we wanted somebody that knew what they were doing in fiscal responsibility. And to Candace's credit, she has brought some really savvy people in to fill in the boxes that were recommended in some of the other studies we had. So we're finally at the right staffing at the city manager's office with competent people. Now we're going to put the cherry on top, Joe Urban. From a financial standpoint, we've got about a $6 million deficit, we think, coming up this year. Our financial systems in the city are probably get great rave reviews. I think that's attaboys from other attaboys. And we don't have what I expect in a business. For instance, in the companies that I've run, we had daily P&Ls. They're rough P&Ls. We have the monthly financials within 10 days at the close of the month. We've got information that's actionable information. The city budget is somewhere, and fiscal side is months behind. Now, part of that's because it's structural. For instance, you only get your property tax payments in the ones we just made for December. The city will get the money for that sometime in February. So you don't really know what the dollar amount is. We have a pretty good idea what it's going to be, but you don't actually have the cash. So the cash register doesn't ring every day like just in a business. So there are some things that need to be improved there. Yes, we're $6 million short. And here's where it comes from. Our three legs for most of our income comes from property tax, transit occupancy tax, and sales tax. And sales tax comes from a variety of places. For instance, when you buy a car, and if you live in Malibu, we get a chunk of the sales tax.
When you build a house in Malibu, how is the tax? How many Malibu? What is the percentage?
You're asking me a part that I don't really know. I know we get about 2.5% of the 10%, or 10 and a quarter, whatever it is now. Part of it goes to the county, part of it goes to the state. And in the county, I'm going to digress for a second, we get roughly 7.5% of the property tax. 7.47 or something like that. The library gets 2.5%. Think about that for a minute. The library gets a third of what we get.
That's why it's a world-class library already.
It looks like crap. Come on. I was over at Topanga for that meeting.
That was nice time.
The first time I'd walked into that library with.
It is beautiful. I will say this: every book, if you check out a book from Malibu Library, it's like brand new because nobody uses it. I mean, right? It's a shame. I hope that there's big picture thinking with the new city manager and city hall next year, where we have the idea that, in my mind, we need to spend money to make money. We need to get these houses rebuilt. Things like the fee waivers, maybe things like property tax or sales tax waivers, those will help earn revenue to the city as these houses come back online.
We have to invest in this. I hate to use that phrase to people that are trying to get budgets done. We're investing in the future. Well, we are. That's what the reserves are for. And, when I came on the city council, all the cash was sitting in a checking account. Well, we were paying bank fees for check processing. And we had over $100 million in the bank. So, or it was 92 million or so, but it was strange the way it was being done. That's since been fixed. So if you figure that all that money is now earning about 4% or so. And it's we now get a monthly or so financial report about where we are. Not all that money is the city's, probably some of it's the assessments. But we've got we used to have more money, but one of the things that happens in the FEMA world is you put the money out and they eventually decide to give it back to you, maybe. And I was talking to somebody the other day that they're just now getting the last payment from Woolsey.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So you're making these no interest loans to the federal government who may or may not approve it in the ultimate and give you your money back. So we've got about $15 to $20 million, I don't know what their fund number is right now, in FEMA reimbursements. It's been growing rapidly. And that $14 million for the telecoms, remember, we have to put the money out and they will eventually give it back to us. So we're in a fortunate position. We got cash, and these are investments that we're making, like the waiving the fee waiver money. That was never a question.
Well, I disagree with you a little bit. We don't have to rehash too much, but I think the fee waiver should have gone farther, and I think for future fires they should go farther. I don't care if it's a primary. I don't care how the house is titled. I don't care if it's a vacation home. If your house burns down in a natural disaster, the fee should be waived because we want to incentivize bringing that house back. It's good for the small businesses. It's good for the city coffers. Just do it.
Well, we're talking, if we were to do it, it looks like it's going to be closer to $10 million.
$10 million.
And part of the reason for it is Yellow to Costa sides here that are going to cost us more in fees for that. The property tax number from the county tax assessor, typically Malibu has a 6 to 8% annual increase in assessed value every year. We're usually one of the top, if not the top, in the county for this. Thank you, Jay-Z and Beyonce. Those kind of things make a difference. However, with the fire, everything that happened immediately was all the improvements on a burnout are taken off the tax roll. So assume that you've got a $3 million assessment, $1 million's for land, $2 million's for improvements, well, now the $2 million's off. So our tax base went up, not the 2% that's Proposition 13, it went up 1%. We are at the absolute bottom of the county for this year. Paramount actually had more money, an increase than we had. So, yeah, we got a hole there to fill. But hopefully as people either sell the lots or they get their houses rebuilt, this will come back and we'll get replaced.
And in the meantime, our spend is increasing as well because of the additional resources that we're bringing.
That's right. But for as long as I've got a vote, I intend to make sure we're wisely spending that money to do the, buying the planning people, buying whatever we need to expedite this.
What's the projection, Doug, as to how long can this go on before we run our coffers dry?
Well, luckily, we've got, I don't want to use a round number, about $65 million in reserves. Now, the beauty of this is you have $65 million in reserves, and then what that does is it allows the rating agencies for bond debt to give us a AA plus rating for long-term money and AAA borrowings for short-term money. But we don't need to borrow any money right now. So you kind of go, all right, we're not going to worry about it. But what this does do is when you say, well, let's build a skate park, or let's build a swimming pool, things like that, it's going to be gag and heave. We're going to have to figure out when to do that. I'm going to digress for a second. If you look back at 2005 or 10, whenever they did the arrangement, had the excess funds, that was when Calabasas was going to set up its own library. And the county didn't want that 2.5% going to the city for the library system. So we made this deal with them, never realizing that we'd be having a surplus of, say, $3 million a year on $6 million worth of taxes. So, or $7 million, whatever the number is going to be now. So, yeah, I think we're going to have to look at how that is working. And we're also going to have to go back with the club and say, guys, if we want to build a civic center, a center of some kind, we're going to use library funds for it because there's going to be a library in there. We're going to have to break their arms and get that done because it's money will be aborted.
A new city hall too. That's also worth hating.
A new
Who decides on how the library money is being spent?
county. We make a recommendation. We go with our hat in our hand and say, please, more meat, please. And that's not the way to do it. Anyway, going back to your question, you got a very good question. First off, the property taxes will gradually come back up. The transit occupancy tax are probably seriously impeded for a while. We lost 73 short-term rentals in the fire. Roughly, I think it's about 15 or 20% of the active short-term rentals. So there goes, we get 15%, by the way, off the top.
I didn't realize that was the second largest source of revenue for the city.
It's about $6 to $9 million.
Because the city likes short-term rentals.
Well, not short-term rentals. It's also, you get also the hotels.
Yeah.
The hotels make up about half to 55% of it. The short-term rentals make up another chunk of it. Yeah, it's become addictive. There's no question about it.
So the next time you see a beer can on the beach, next time you see a beer can on the beach.
Actually, pick it up and get a recycled money for the city.
Yeah.
No, we should be clawing our way out of this in 2 or 3 years. And when I came on city council, we actually had a $9 million surplus a year. And it's not because of anything we did. It's because of the prior city councils that were prudent in what they spend money on and so forth. And we need to keep that same discipline here.
We need houses back.
We need houses back.
So during Woolsey, there was also like a problem, and it's like that.
Yeah, so we didn't have as many houses.
It was 400 and
400 and some.
Yeah.
So speaking of infrastructural spend, I want to be respectful of your time here as well. Sewer, your view on it, happening, not happening, should it happen? What's your take?
Well, first off, we got to look at it from an economic point of view. And I think the number that's on the table is like $125 million for 400 connections. That's a pretty large bite per house. On the other hand, you look at a full on-site wastewater treatment system that's state-of-the-art, it's not so much the cost of the equipment, it's the seawall that goes with it and the implications of the seawall. But we're not going to get the sewer system in tomorrow. And I think the agreement that we've got with the water board to allow the existing septic systems to be an interim solution may become a better solution. And I'll quote somebody who said, "There's nothing more permanent than a temporary program in government."
But Doug, do you know how many existing septic systems can be inspected and approved to remain?
Do you know?
Not that many.
Yeah.
Do you know?
No, I do know that policy that was announced last week,
You're pessimistic.
that was very helpful for my family in our rebuild and all of our adjacent neighbors. Because our septic systems are inspectable. Whether or not they're all improvable, I'm not Eli Jr., I can't say. But the people I've spoken to, they are confident that they can reuse
So
theirs.
what you just said is that you prefer people to recycle all systems instead of sewer?
Well, for now, because we're not going to be able to wait for the sewer system.
As a
Stopgap.
well, until the sewers.
Sewer will happen in 5 years, and in the meantime, we have to figure out what we can do, but yes to sewer.
Yeah, but get these homes rebuilt, get people back in it as economically as possible.
Can I ask, before you go on, one question? This $125 million cost, would any of that be on the city's shoulders, or would it be assessed on each homeowner?
It's going to it's going to be on the homeowners eventually.
Right, so the city should be agnostic about the cost of it, right?
Except you got to raise the money
You got to front the money, and then everybody pays it back.
and pay it back. It gets back to that credit rating I just talked about. And we may get some support from other people. But here's what I want to see the solution proposed. Right now we're still talking about what could be, might be, could be. John Sock, who, if you remember back days gone by, was a city mayor, council member, also an engineer. And he sent me a proposal that actually I know has been, I started to say poo-pooed away, but that's the right thing to say.
That's the right thing to say.
There's a system called a pressure system. And what it does is it's a combination septic tank, but the leach isn't there. You actually pump it out on a pipeline, a very narrow pipeline that pumps it down to the treatment plant. So it's less capacity, and all it is the effluent that goes out. There's some concerns about how it operates and so forth, but according to the environmental Protection Agency, this is a workable solution for some places.
And you would send that west to the Civic Center.
I'd probably still send it down to Hyperion.
So it's a mini
The
sewer?
pipe would be
It's a mini-
smaller, it's smaller pipe, and you get it in as an adjunct to the existing systems you have today, because you don't have the leach fields.
Sounds like a pseudo sewer.
It's a pseudo sewer.
You're not asking, here would be my opinion on that. You still got a trench,
Yes.
and you still don't get the water board off your back, because it's my opinion that this sewer is going in now, or it's going in 10 years, when the water board makes up its mind that those houses on the beach aren't compliant with the other. So
I
that's
don't
my
disagree with you, but also remember that the water board would just as soon have every house in Malibu on a sewer.
That's what I'm saying. And they're going to get what they want, I fear, eventually.
Maybe. But I think we're going to end up with a sewer system. But right now, the interim solution has got to be the fast solution. And let's get people on the beach side back in their homes, and get the people on the hillsides not even to have to worry about it. But one of my cautions that I have is if we put a sewer system on PCH, there's a difference between what we have today and turning this into Newport Beach.
Of course. But you have zoning for that. The zoning for there's no zoning for hotels. There's 1 or 2 lots. Norm Heine was able to change his zoning. It took us 8 years. There's no zoning for hotels. Maybe some motels.
But if you give it, I hate to use the baseball analogy, but if you build it, they will come.
I don't want to minimize anybody's fears, and I do know that it was the county's plans in the 80s
That's
to have
why Malibu becomes
100,000
a city.
100,000 people live in Malibu. But I always point out that there's a hotel across the street, 65 rooms,
From the county times.
and it runs on septic.
Right.
So you can build sizable structures that run on septic. You just string septic tanks together. So don't actually believe that a sewer line makes a difference in terms of what you build. It's the zoning.
Yeah, to your point, it's the zoning has restricted it all to the east. And if it continues,
This is a
Of
downward.
course, for as long as you have that zoning in place.
And of course, we can't underestimate our citizens' ability to appeal stuff.
Exactly. I have, before, probably you have one last question, then I have a question for you. And we're going to enter now election time, right? So refresh my mind, what was your platform that you ran on? Like, what were you promising before you got voted in? Have you done it? And if you run again, what are you going to be trying to work on?
Okay, as far as the platform goes, it was really about having a workable government, fiscal responsibility, and try and get public safety improved, even before we had the 4 Pepperdine women killed. And I think I've delivered a lot of that. Working diligently on MRCA issues, the speed cameras I got put in. By the way, I learned a lot about the state legislative process.
You did that with Alexis, I remember. Yes.
Yeah.
You got it.
It was an eye-opening experience. I would never want to be in the state legislature. Let's put it that way. Hats off to whoever wants to do it, but not for me. I think I've delivered on the core. I had a 100-day plan, and I pretty well got most of that in place. And one of the things I think I've delivered probably better than anything else, you don't see the divisiveness on the city council. You know, I've said this, and I think everybody would agree with me, it's on the council. We get along, we don't necessarily go along. But there's respect, professionalism, and general trying to build a consensus as opposed to my way or the highway.
I have to say that you are probably one of the members who's more in between dealing with issues, yeah.
Look, I worked in the corporate world where the CEO picks your other EVPs. You don't get to pick who you're working with. Mm-hmm. They get told to you. I mean, you may try to have some influence, but at the end of the appointment, it doesn't make any difference who you like and don't like. You got to get the results, and that's what I think we've done. I want to get the Baker-Tilly report in. I want to get stuff like that in. We've been able to get a lot of this stuff done.
So when you say Baker-Tilly report, like improving the technology systems at the city, this is another thing that we spoke on. You said that it takes 18 months, but we got to start at some point, right, to improve the systems. You think you are going to be wanting to work on that when you get elected?
I've done that. Look, IT departments used to
You're not no, it's not happening. He's trying to submit his lost, and he's an expert.
Listen, I understand the infrastructure issues. We're just one step away from using Excel Windows.
Well, so that's the
No,
thing.
it's-
I asked if there was a database with which the planning and public works departments actually coordinate their plan review, and I was told no, there is no
You
spreadsheet.
still drag
It
files
doesn't even
from this
exist.
email to a
Yeah, it's
folder.
all just this crazy
A
black
lot of
box
things get
of
lost.
it's submitted.
Yeah, I think that's what I
And
was-
until you poke everybody in the box to get like an assessment of where your plan review is, you won't find out.
And there's no
It'll take you 2
accountability,
weeks.
the payments is
Oh.
impossible. We lose a lot of time with this.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, look, one of the reasons that we brought in this particular assistant city manager
Yeah,
is for
he's an expert. Yeah.
So, yeah, we understand that. Look, I put year 2000 was a critical date for a lot of people that went from a process system to a database system. And I was integrally involved in that in the company I was with at the time, Color Graphics. And we took, and when you understand how databases work, it's about throwing a bunch of things into the shells and being able to pull them off. That's how I could create database management. And we ended up with a system that's state of the art. And in 2008, when we sold the company,
Do it now, 2025, 2026.
that's what we need. You got to have the right horses to do it. And it can be painful if it's not done right. And trying to fix the processing system in the middle of all the rebuilds is a challenge. But I think we're going to be able to pull it off. But it's not going to be this week or next week.
Here's my sense of things, Doug, mostly from the outside. You have to push for anything you want accomplished with our system of government and our staff and the way things are set up. You have to really push. And I do believe you pushed on public safety. I don't know how workable our system of government is. Certainly some of these things, technology we're talking about, we can push harder in the new year. And I hope there's time to do that.
All right, I would challenge you on this. When you push, you quite often cause things to be broken in the process. It's a lot better to figure out how to build a workable consensus. It takes a little longer to do it, but when you get everybody buying into it, it lasts. And if I brought anything into this government from corporate experience, is you want to build a system that has longevity and operates well. You can force anything to get done. It's easy to do. And I would tell you, you guys probably don't remember Theory X and Theory Y management, but you can always demand somebody follow an order, and they will do it once. But what you want is the ability of people to work in a consensus, particularly with participatory management approach, so that you got everybody coming up with the solutions.
I don't disagree with that in theory, but there are things like an agenda item that's always put at the end of the agenda for months now to make the rebuild process more efficient. Seems like that should not be debatable to anybody, but it's always at the end of the night and it always gets pushed off. I don't know if that's deliberate or not. Somebody could choose, request to bring that forward. You're not the mayor, so it might not happen, but you could request to push that out in the night.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I think the people that propose that would like for them to die a quiet death. And the reason for it is the liability issues for the city. You'll notice that doesn't say in that particular item you're talking about, they want to pass a resolution. They're looking for input. And that's partially to be able to go like this. So-
I don't know who your city attorney is that would advise you that it increases liability to say you want to go faster as a resolution. The city of LA did that, and they're not getting sued for going faster. It just happened because it was
I don't
direction.
understand. We'll go offline and I'll take you through the process here. There's a reason why self-certification has not been a success.
This isn't about self-certification.
We're talking about-
What's being
We're talking about streamlining the processes as they are, just more efficient.
Self-certification for civil engineers, though, not for architects.
Well, engineers tend to be.
I'm not pushing specifically about self-certification because, as we know, City of LA does it. Nobody chooses to go that route because it's too much liability on the contractors.
That's right.
But I'm talking about a direction, an ethos of the city to prioritize rebuilds and go faster. Amazingly, 11 months later, that still hasn't happened. Like Karen Bass has the ability to issue an executive order saying, we're going to go faster. And lo and behold, They issue hundreds and hundreds of, and it's not apples to apples, I understand. But from the beginning, they got moving and they made changes. Malibu hasn't done that.
What's the first house that was given a certificate of occupancy in the Palisades?
Has that happened yet?
It has, but that was a spec home.
It was a
Like,
spec home.
builders,
There were
Yeah.
three to be built.
But they have like 50 others that are all
And
volumed up.
when's our
framed
first
out.
CLO gonna be issued? August 2026? I mean, it's like.
He's got it. What's your
long-
schedule?
We got a long
It's gonna be
time.
quick. Well, I mean, we're training. Look, I mean, I think we discussed a lot of the complexities that are involved in the process, inherent in the process. Part of it is cultural, as you shared. Part of it is infrastructural. But the one thing I will say, I was having a conversation actually yesterday with somebody that has been involved with the city on the outside as a participant for homeowners, as doing engineering work for homeowners. And he mentioned to me on the call is that, look, I've never seen as much change happen this year than in the preceding, 19 years that I've worked here. So for that, I think Doug, you and others on the council deserve a lot of credit.
Well, it's not so much the council members, it's the people in the trenches. And you got to change the attitude. And that's one of the things that I think implementing the Baker-Tilly suggestions changes that. But we also have to change the influence of the public on the staff. If you think it's friends don't let friends become city managers in Malibu, friends don't let friends become
Planners.
planners or whatever. Peeling is also an issue.
But staff listens to the council, though. If they see that the council want to be open to
Exactly
do
right.
things faster, they're going to do it faster.
Listen, leadership is everything. And leadership is at all different levels. And all you got to do is have, and or else being required, I won't do the usual line, one all nuts wipes out 9 attaboys. And that's one of the things we got to be careful about. You can't have a bad situation with a planner and hope for that planner to say, well, I'm going to be aggressive about this again. I'm going to try to move this forward.
Well, maybe what we can all agree on is that with a strong city manager in place, some of that public input could filter through that person and not go directly to the staff where it might be unhelpful.
Exactly right. And you're also looking at a city manager, probably the first time that I can remember, that comes out of a planning background and has been a community development director, has been in charge of this. So I think you're going to like this guy. And I kind of go back to the football coach analogy. He's the right pick for our team. And we had to throw out a lot of bad apples and a lot of people that didn't fit. And I know there was a lot of pressure to get something done, but we wanted to do it right and get the right person. And I think that's what we got. And I think you're going to like this guy. Right off the bat, and one of the complaints everybody had is city manager doesn't live in Malibu. Don't live in Aljet. This person is going to be able to go surfing with people.
He surfs. Boom. Approved.
He's also a snowboarder too. But then again,
That's because in Lake Tahoe, not a lot of surfing, right?
Well, Doug, we've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
and this has been a fascinating conversation. I think we could go on for another couple of hours, easy. I don't know, guys, if you.
I mean, we have time.
invite me back.
I will, for sure. We will, for sure. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate
That's
I
how-
appreciate the forum and I appreciate you guys' time. You guys, you're almost like in the English Parliament, the backbenchers. And you always sit in the back. I sit up there and I'm going, they're all up there.
It's funny because I would sit in the back, and one day you came to me and you asked me, why are you here? Remember? That's how I go to grab a coffee with you. We just care for Malibu, and we want to rebuild and chill.
Yeah, and one of the things I think we all have to keep in mind, and I've said this before, and I want to keep saying it again, it's not that we're pro-development or anti-development. We're pro-Malibu. And that's the message we got to hand. That's the message to the planners, everybody else. It's pro-Malibu. And we need to get the things out of the way that impede that. And we were going to talk about appeals, and this one tomorrow is a perfect example of it. All the time it is taken to process this appeal and all the emails that I get from people about why this shouldn't be approved, they're all wrong.
Yeah, that's not very pro Malibu.
So let's fix the appeal process and let's keep information as
I
precise
think
as
that
possible.
I think the problem with the appeals is that it just takes so long to go through. I mean, everybody should appeal, and then if that appeal gets focused and gets acknowledged or dismissed quickly, it's fine, right?
Well, it's because the staff has to assemble that huge binder of every email they got, of every correspondence that is against it or for it, and it ends up being 800 pages.
Yeah.
That's like 2 weeks of work.
But it's not just the council's time. You think about this particular project has been before the planning commission, I want to say 4 times for approval, and has been approved. All this stuff has been pre-approved. I mean, the only thing that's really wrong with this project is they painted it the wrong color, and the tower is a few feet higher than it should be because of a question of what the measurement base was.
So it goes.
So it goes.
Good luck.
And by the way, look, guys, one of the things to leave with you, we got to be factual. You know, people get worked up over things that are, it's bad enough when we do things wrong, like the TDSF. I think we didn't handle that well. It wasn't meant to be applying to people on the beach. It was to make sure we understood who was eligible for a TDSF. And we didn't get that out right. But misinformation helps people's agendas that are very negative. I mean, it kind of goes together. So let's try and get the factual information, critical thinking on the table.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we have a podcast. Gosh darn it.
And that's why we're here. Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you.
You know, for the backbenchers, that's what you ought to call this. See, this the backbenchers.
The backbenchers.
Sometimes we move to the front when it's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
The
You know something's up when that happens.
You know, with the signs up.
Yeah, all
We
those
do have a
signs.
sheriff's deputy there to control the crowd.